What if I told you that the biggest betrayal you will ever experience is not from a friend who stabs you in the back, a partner who breaks your heart, or a family member who lets you down, but from yourself? Every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you shrink yourself to fit into someone else's expectations, every time you abandon your dreams to please people who will never be satisfied, and every time you sacrifice your authenticity on the altar of approval, you are betraying the one person you are meant to protect above all others: yourself. Most people spend their entire lives performing for an audience that does not even care. They twist themselves into shapes that feel unnatural, chasing validation from people whose opinions should not matter, sacrificing their truth to avoid conflict, and wondering why they feel empty despite doing everything right according to everyone else's standards. They have become experts at living for others while remaining complete strangers to themselves. But here is the truth that will either liberate you or terrify you. The only person whose life you can actually live is your own. And the only person whose approval you truly need is staring back at you from the mirror. The people who radiate authentic confidence, who build lives that actually fulfill them, who create success on their own terms, who maintain their integrity regardless of external pressure, and who seem genuinely happy rather than just performing happiness, they all share one non-negotiable trait. They stopped living for others and started living for themselves. Not in a selfish, narcissistic way that harms others, but in a self-honoring way that recognizes that your life is yours to live, not theirs to direct. By the time you finish this audiobook, you will understand the psychology of people-pleasing, why living for others destroys your soul, and most importantly, how to reclaim your life from the expectations, judgments, and demands of everyone who thinks they know better than you, what you should do with your one precious existence. This is not about becoming selfish or isolated. This is about becoming yourself, finally and completely, without apology or permission. Chapter 1. The Epidemic of Living for Others. Here is a reality check that most people need, but few want to hear. Studies show that over 70% of people report making major life decisions based primarily on others' expectations rather than their own desires. That means the vast majority of humans are living lives designed by committee, approved by people who have no stake in the outcome, and wondering why success feels hollow and achievement feels empty. They are living someone else's definition of a good life and calling it their own. But the tragedy runs even deeper. Most people who are living for others do not even realize they are doing it. They have been performing for so long that they have forgotten there is anyone beneath the performance. They genuinely believe their people-pleasing tendencies are just being kind. Their constant self-sacrifice is being generous. Their inability to say no is being helpful. And their abandonment of personal desires is being mature. They have rationalized their self-betrayal so thoroughly that they experience it as virtue. Think about your own life, honestly. How many of your choices are truly yours? Did you choose your career because it excited you, or because it impressed your parents, looked good to others, or seemed like the responsible choice according to external standards? Are you in your relationship because this person genuinely fulfills you, or because they check boxes that others told you matter? Do you live where you live because you love it, or because it makes sense according to someone else's logic? Do you spend your time on activities that nourish your soul, or on obligations that drain your energy but maintain your image? Living for others shows up in countless ways. most so normalized that you do not recognize them as problems. You might be a chronic people pleaser, unable to tolerate anyone's disappointment, even when meeting their needs means abandoning your own. You rearrange your schedule constantly to accommodate others while your own priorities never get attention. You give and give until you are depleted, then feel resentful that no one appreciates your sacrifice, not recognizing that you trained them to take and trained yourself to give beyond your capacity. Perhaps you are an approval addict, making decisions based on what will gain praise and avoid criticism rather than what aligns with your authentic desires. You curate your life for the camera, for the LinkedIn profile, for the family gathering, caring more about how things look than how they feel. You measure success by external metrics, job titles, salary numbers, relationship status, social media engagement, rather than internal satisfaction. You are climbing a ladder only to discover it is leaning against the wrong wall. But you cannot stop climbing because everyone is watching and applauding. Maybe you are a conflict avoider, saying yes when you want to say no, because saying no might upset someone. You tolerate behavior that violates your boundaries, because addressing it would create tension. You suppress your opinions, needs, and preferences to keep the peace, not realizing that this peace is fake and the cost is your authenticity. You have become a chameleon, changing colors to match whatever environment you are in, never showing your true self, because you learned early that your true self is not acceptable. Or perhaps you are living the life someone else designed for you. You are in the career your parents wanted, pursuing goals that look impressive to your peer group, following a script written by cultural expectations. You are the good daughter, the responsible son, the successful professional, the devoted partner, the selfless parent, performing roles so convincingly that you have forgotten there is a person beneath the roles. You have outsourced the authorship of your life to everyone except the one person qualified to write it, you. The psychology behind living for others usually begins in childhood. You learned early that love and acceptance were conditional. You got attention and approval when you performed correctly, whether that meant achieving academically, behaving properly, suppressing emotions, taking care of others' feelings, or being who they needed you to be. You learned that your authentic self was not acceptable, but your performing self could earn love. So you developed that performing self and buried your authentic self so deep you lost contact with it entirely. Perhaps you grew up in an environment where expressing your needs was labeled selfish, where having boundaries was considered rude, where saying no was a sign of disrespect, where your feelings were inconvenient, and where your desires took a back seat to everyone else's comfort. Your young nervous system learned that survival meant pleasing others, and that authenticity meant rejection. These lessons, learned before you could think critically about them, became the operating system running your adult life. Cultural conditioning reinforces living for others through messages absorbed from every direction. Be nice. Do not rock the boat. Think of others first. Do not be selfish. Make your parents proud. Live up to expectations. Prove yourself. Fit in. Conform. Perform. These messages are so pervasive that questioning them feels like moral failure. But these cultural scripts were not designed for your fulfillment. They were designed for social cohesion, often at the cost of individual authenticity and happiness. The cost of living for others is devastating and cumulative. You lose yourself piece by piece, compromise by compromise, until you wake up one day in a life that looks successful from the outside but feels empty from the inside. You have achieved everything you were supposed to achieve and feel none of the fulfillment you were promised. You are surrounded by people but feel profoundly alone because no one actually knows the real you, including yourself. Your mental health deteriorates when you live for others. Anxiety becomes constant because you are trying to control others' perceptions and reactions, which is impossible. Depression sets in because you are living inauthentically, disconnected from your true self and genuine desires. Resentment builds because you give constantly, but your own needs go unmet. Exhaustion becomes your baseline because performing is energetically expensive and you never get to rest in authenticity. Your relationships suffer despite all your efforts to please others. Ironically, living for others does not create the connection and appreciation you hope for. It creates relationships based on false pretenses where people love your performance, not your person. These relationships feel hollow because there is no real intimacy when one person is perpetually hiding. And when you finally crack under the pressure of constant performance, people are disappointed and confused, having no idea who you actually are beneath the mask. Your potential remains unrealized when you live for others because you are pursuing their dreams, not yours. Your unique gifts, the contributions only you can make, stay dormant because you are too busy being who others want you to be. The world loses what you could have offered, and you lose the fulfillment that comes from authentic self-expression. The tragedy is that living for others does not even serve others well in the long run. You model inauthenticity, teaching children that performing matters more than being real. You create relationships based on transaction and performance rather than genuine connection. You contribute to a culture that values appearance over substance, and you inevitably burn out and become resentful, which hurts everyone around you more than honoring yourself ever would have. But here is the possibility that exists beneath this epidemic. You can stop. You can reclaim your life. You can learn to live for yourself without becoming selfish or cruel. You can discover who you actually are beneath all the conditioning and performance. You can build a life that feels as good from the inside as it looks from the outside. You can experience the liberation of authenticity and the joy of self-honoring choices. This is not only possible, this is your birthright. And the journey begins with understanding what living for yourself actually means. Chapter 2. What living for yourself actually means. Before you can live for yourself, you need to understand what that actually means, because most people have distorted ideas that prevent them from even attempting it. Living for yourself does not mean becoming selfish, narcissistic, or indifferent to others. It does not mean abandoning responsibility, hurting people to get what you want, or living without consideration for how your choices affect others. These misunderstandings keep many people trapped in people-pleasing because they fear that the alternative is becoming an asshole. Living for yourself means making yourself the primary author of your life story, rather than living according to scripts written by others. It means your values, not their expectations, guide your choices. Your desires, not their approval, determine your direction. Your integrity, not their opinions, defines your character. You consider others' perspectives and needs, but you do not outsource the final decision to them. You are the CEO of your life, taking input from advisors, but making the ultimate calls yourself. Living for yourself means honoring your authentic needs, desires, and boundaries without apology. It means recognizing that your needs are as valid as anyone else's, and that meeting them is not selfish, but necessary. It means saying no to what does not serve you, even when yes would be easier or more popular. It means saying yes to what calls to you, even when others do not understand or approve. It means treating yourself with the same consideration and respect you have been giving everyone else. Living for yourself means aligning your external life with your internal truth. It means your choices reflect who you actually are rather than who you think you should be. Your career expresses your strengths and interests rather than someone else's idea of success. Your relationships are chosen based on genuine connection rather than obligation or appearance. Your daily activities include things that genuinely nourish you rather than only serving external demands. Living for yourself means developing an internal locus of evaluation, where your own assessment of your choices matters more than others' judgments. It means you can feel good about a decision, even when others disapprove. You can feel unsatisfied with a situation, even when others think you should be grateful. You trust your own experience and judgment more than you trust others' opinions about your experience and judgment. Living for yourself means taking full responsibility for your life outcomes. When you live for others, you can blame them when you are unhappy. When you live for yourself, you acknowledge that your choices created your circumstances, and you have the power to make different choices. This responsibility is both burden and liberation. You cannot blame others anymore, but you also are not trapped by their limitations or expectations. Living for yourself means accepting that not everyone will understand, approve, or support your choices, and being okay with that. It means releasing the impossible goal of pleasing everyone, and instead honoring yourself even when it disappoints others. It means understanding that their disappointment is information about their expectations, not evidence of your failure. You can have compassion for their disappointment without changing your authentic choices to prevent it. Living for yourself means developing self-trust, the confidence that you can make good decisions for your own life, even when those decisions do not make sense to others. It means believing that you know yourself better than anyone else knows you, and that your inner guidance deserves more weight than their external advice. It means respecting your own wisdom and lived experience as the ultimate authority on what is right for you. Living for yourself means creating boundaries that protect your energy, time, authenticity, and well-being. It means being selective about who gets access to you and what you agree to do. It means recognizing that every yes to someone else might be a no to yourself, and choosing consciously rather than defaulting to people-pleasing. It means valuing your resources enough to invest them according to your priorities rather than everyone else's requests. Living for yourself means embracing your uniqueness rather than trying to conform to normality. It means recognizing that your differences are not problems to fix, but gifts to express. It means pursuing what genuinely interests you, even if it seems weird to others. It means expressing your personality fully rather than editing yourself to be more palatable. It means understanding that a life lived authentically will never look exactly like anyone else's life, and that this is success, not failure. Living for yourself means prioritizing your long-term fulfillment over short-term approval. It means making choices that serve your future self, even when they create immediate discomfort or disapproval from others. It means understanding that the temporary discomfort of others' disappointment is less costly than the permanent loss of your authentic life. It means playing the long game with your own happiness rather than constantly sacrificing it for momentary peace with others. Living for yourself means healing the wounds that make authenticity feel dangerous. It means recognizing that the conditional love you experienced in the past does not define what love is or what you deserve. It means understanding that people who only accept your performing self are not offering real love. And losing their approval is not losing anything real. It means believing that you are worthy of love exactly as you are, not as you pretend to be. Living for yourself means becoming your own source of validation rather than seeking it externally. It means developing the capacity to feel proud of yourself regardless of others' reactions. It means acknowledging your own efforts, growth, and achievements without needing external recognition to make them real. It means knowing your own worth, independent of titles, status, accomplishments, or anyone's assessment of you. Living for yourself means choosing discomfort in service of authenticity over comfort in service of performance. It means accepting that living authentically will sometimes create conflict, disappointment others, or result in judgment, and doing it anyway because inauthenticity is more painful than any of those outcomes. It means understanding that temporary relational tension is less damaging than permanent self-abandonment. This is what living for yourself actually means. Not selfishness, but self-honoring. Not cruelty, but authenticity. Not isolation, but integrity. Not disregard for others, but proper regard for yourself, alongside others, rather than beneath them. When you understand this clearly, the fear of becoming selfish dissolves, and you can move forward into reclaiming your life. Chapter 3. The People-Pleasing Trap. People-pleasing is one of the primary ways people betray themselves and live for others, yet it is often celebrated as virtue. The people-pleaser is praised for being so nice, so helpful, so generous, so thoughtful. But beneath the praise lies a destructive pattern that slowly destroys authenticity, builds resentment, and creates relationships based on false pretenses. Understanding the people-pleasing trap deeply is essential for escaping it. People-pleasing is not the same as being kind or generous. Genuine kindness comes from overflow, from choosing to give because you want to and can. People-pleasing comes from fear, from believing you must give to be acceptable. Genuine generosity has boundaries and limits. People-pleasing has neither, giving beyond capacity and then resenting the depletion. Genuine thoughtfulness considers both self and others. People-pleasing considers only others and abandons self. The people-pleaser operates from a core belief that their worth must be earned through service to others. They believe, usually unconsciously, that they are not inherently valuable, but can become valuable by being useful, agreeable, and accommodating. They trade authenticity for approval, needs for acceptance, and self for safety. This trade always costs more than it gains. People-pleasing shows up in countless behaviors. The chronic yes, even when you want to say no. The constant apologies for things that do not require apology. The over-explaining and justifying your choices to avoid judgment. The taking responsibility for others' emotions and trying to manage their feelings. The avoiding conflict at all costs, even when conflict is necessary and healthy. The giving advice you do not want to give and help you do not want to provide because refusing feels impossible. People pleasers become hypervigilant to others' emotional states, constantly scanning for signs of displeasure or disappointment. They are walking on eggshells, adjusting their behavior constantly to keep everyone else comfortable. Their nervous system is chronically activated in this state of monitoring and adjusting, never getting to relax into authenticity. They are exhausted from the constant performance and resentful that no one appreciates how hard they are working to keep everyone happy. The people pleaser often plays the role of the fixer, jumping in to solve everyone else's problems before they are even asked. They cannot tolerate seeing anyone struggle without rushing to rescue them. This might look like caring, but often it is about managing their own discomfort with others' distress and maintaining the identity of being helpful. It also prevents others from developing their own capacity and creates dependency that ultimately serves no one. People pleasers struggle enormously with boundaries. Setting a boundary feels mean, selfish, or cruel. Saying no feels like rejecting the person rather than declining the request. They have been conditioned to believe that love means unlimited availability and that setting limits equals not caring. So they remain boundaryless, available to everyone for everything, except to themselves for anything. The resentment that builds in people pleasers is inevitable and toxic. You cannot chronically abandon yourself without becoming resentful. You cannot give beyond your capacity without depleting. You cannot say yes when you mean no without eventually hating the people you are trying to please. This resentment often comes out sideways through passive aggression, martyr behavior, or sudden explosions that confuse everyone because the people pleaser seemed fine until they were not. People pleasers often attract takers, users, and narcissists who have no qualms about exploiting the people pleaser's inability to say no. These relationships become increasingly one-sided, with the people pleaser giving everything and receiving nothing, yet feeling unable to leave because that would be abandoning someone who needs them. The people pleaser becomes trapped in relationships that drain them while giving nothing back. The people pleaser fears that if they stop people pleasing, they will lose relationships and be alone. This fear keeps them trapped because in many cases, the fear is accurate. Some relationships are based entirely on what the people pleaser provides, and those relationships will end when the people pleaser stops overgiving. But these are not real relationships. These are transactions. Losing them is not loss. It is liberation from connections that were harming you. Breaking free from people pleasing requires recognizing that it is not virtue, but dysfunction. It requires understanding that chronically abandoning yourself to please others is not love, but fear-based behavior. It requires seeing that the relationships maintained through people pleasing are not genuine, and that real connection requires authenticity, not performance. The first step out of people pleasing is awareness. Notice when you are saying yes, but feeling no. Notice when you are over-explaining or apologizing unnecessarily. Notice when you are taking responsibility for others' emotions. Notice when you are giving beyond your capacity. This awareness creates space between the people-pleasing impulse and the people-pleasing behavior where choice becomes possible. The second step is understanding your why. Why do you people please? What do you fear will happen if you stop? Usually the fear is rejection, abandonment, anger, or being seen as selfish or bad. These fears feel enormous, but when examined closely, they are often outdated responses from childhood experiences rather than accurate predictions of adult reality. Understanding the origin of the pattern helps you recognize that it is not serving you anymore. The third step is starting small with boundaries. Do not try to transform into a boundary-setting master overnight. Start with small no's in low-stakes situations. Decline the request that you really do not want to fulfill. Express the preference that differs from the group. Set the small boundary with someone safe. Each small success builds the capacity for larger boundary setting. The fourth step is tolerating discomfort. When you stop people pleasing, people will be disappointed. They might be confused, upset, or even angry. This is uncomfortable, but discomfort is not danger. Their disappointment is information about their expectations, not a command you must obey. Practice feeling uncomfortable without immediately trying to fix it by returning to people pleasing. Your tolerance for others' negative emotions will grow with practice. The fifth step is finding your authentic yes. People pleasing means everything is yes out of obligation. When you stop people pleasing, you create space for genuine yes from desire. What do you actually want to do? Who do you genuinely want to help? What feels like authentic generosity rather than obligatory service? Your yeses become more meaningful when they are chosen rather than compelled. The sixth step is rebuilding identity. If your entire identity is built on being the helper, the giver, the nice one, who are you when you stop? This identity crisis is uncomfortable but necessary. Beneath the people-pleasing role is an authentic self waiting to be discovered. Give yourself permission to explore who you are beyond what you do for others. Escaping the people-pleasing trap is not about becoming unhelpful or unkind. It is about helping and being kind from a place of choice and capacity rather than fear and compulsion. It is about balancing consideration for others with consideration for yourself. It is about building relationships based on genuine connection rather than conditional approval. It is about reclaiming your life from the tyranny of others' expectations and living according to your own values and desires. Chapter 4. The Approval Addiction. Closely related to people-pleasing but distinct in its mechanics is approval addiction, the compulsive need for external validation that keeps you performing for an audience that will never be satisfied. Understanding this addiction and breaking free from it is essential for living for yourself rather than others. Approval addiction operates like any other addiction. You get a hit of validation, praise, or recognition that temporarily fills the void of inner unworthiness. You feel good briefly, but the feeling fades, and you need another hit. Over time, you need increasing amounts of approval to feel okay. Your entire life becomes organized around getting these hits, and you experience withdrawal symptoms, anxiety, depression, panic when approval is withheld, or criticism is delivered. The approval addict makes decisions based primarily on what will gain praise and avoid criticism. They choose careers that impress rather than fulfill. They pursue achievements that look good rather than feel satisfying. They present a carefully curated version of themselves designed to maximize approval. They are performing constantly, and the performance is exhausting because it never ends and never satisfies. Social media has amplified approval addiction to epidemic proportions. Every post becomes a test. How many likes? How many comments? How does the engagement compare to your last post or to others' posts. Your worth fluctuates with these metrics. A well-received post creates a temporary high. A post that flops creates genuine distress. You are allowing strangers' judgments to determine your emotional state and self-worth, which is insanity when you step back and see it clearly. Approval addiction creates a specific kind of anxiety called evaluation anxiety, the constant fear of being judged and found wanting. The approval addict walks through life feeling like they are always being evaluated, and in a sense, they are because they have made others' opinions the measure of their worth. This chronic anxiety is exhausting and prevents presence because you are always monitoring how you are being perceived rather than actually living your experience. The approval addict becomes a chameleon, changing to match whatever environment they are in. They have different personalities for different audiences, saying what they think each audience wants to hear, presenting the version of themselves they believe will be most accepted in each context. This constant shapeshifting means they never develop a stable sense of self because they are always being whoever seems most likely to gain approval. Imposter syndrome plagues approval addicts because they know that the person receiving approval is a performance, not their authentic self. They fear being found out, exposed as different from their presentation. This fear is actually accurate. They are not who they pretend to be. But instead of seeing this as an invitation to be more authentic, they see it as evidence they need to perform better and hide more carefully. The approval addict cannot handle criticism or rejection without their entire sense of self collapsing. One negative comment undoes 100 positive ones. One rejection feels like proof of fundamental unworthiness. One person's disapproval weighs more than a crowd's approval. This is because their worth is externally sourced, and external sources are inherently unstable and uncontrollable. Breaking free from approval addiction starts with recognizing that you are addicted. You are not just someone who likes when people like you. You are someone whose emotional state and self-worth depend on others' opinions. You are organizing your life around getting approval hits. This is addiction. And like any addiction, the first step is admitting you have a problem. The second step is understanding that external approval can never fill the void of internal self-rejection. You could have the whole world's approval and still feel empty if you do not approve of yourself. The hole you are trying to fill from the outside can only be filled from the inside. Every moment spent seeking external validation is a moment not spent developing internal validation. The third step is becoming your own source of approval. Start acknowledging yourself for your efforts, growth, and qualities without needing external confirmation. Give yourself the praise you have been desperately seeking from others. This feels awkward initially because you have been trained to think self-approval is arrogant. But self-approval is not arrogance. It is sanity. It is recognizing your own value independent of others' assessments. The fourth step is experimenting with disappointing people. Deliberately make choices that you know some people will disapprove of, but that align with your authentic self. Start small. Express an unpopular opinion. Make a choice others question. Wear something others might judge. Notice that their disapproval, while uncomfortable, does not actually destroy you. You survive. The world continues. This builds your capacity to tolerate disapproval, which is essential for authenticity. The fifth step is curating your information diet. Stop consuming content designed to make you feel inadequate so you will seek approval. Unfollow accounts that trigger comparison and approval seeking. Reduce time on platforms engineered to exploit your need for validation. Fill your mental space with content that reminds you of your inherent worth, rather than content that makes worth contingent on achievement or appearance. The sixth step is building non-performance-based self-worth. Your worth is not what you achieve, how you look, what you own, or what others think of you. Your worth is inherent in your existence as a human being. You were born worthy. Nothing you do increases it. Nothing you do decreases it. Building this understanding intellectually and emotionally is the antidote to approval addiction. The seventh step is accepting that some people will never approve of you no matter what you do. Their disapproval is about their values, wounds, and limitations, not about your inadequacy. You could perform perfectly, and they still would not approve, because approval is not what they are offering. Accepting this allows you to stop trying to win over people who have no intention of being won. The eighth step is finding communities and relationships based on authenticity rather than performance. Seek out people who appreciate you as you are rather than as you perform. Share your struggles, not just your highlights. Be honest about your limitations. Test whether people stick around when you are not impressive. The ones who do are offering real connection. The ones who disappear were only ever interested in your performance. Breaking free from approval addiction does not mean becoming indifferent to others' opinions. It means right-sizing their importance. Opinions become information you can consider rather than commands you must obey. You can appreciate praise without needing it. You can hear criticism without being destroyed by it. You can make choices based on your values even when others disagree. This is freedom. This is living for yourself. Chapter 5. Dismantling the should prison. One of the most imprisoning aspects of living for others is the tyranny of shoulds. Your mind is filled with rules about how you should be, what you should do, what you should want, how you should feel. These shoulds come from parents, culture, religion, peer groups, past versions of yourself. They create a prison where your authentic desires and preferences are constantly judged as wrong if they do not align with what you should want. Liberating yourself from the should prison is essential for living for yourself. The should voice sounds authoritative. It sounds like truth. It sounds like wisdom or morality or responsibility. But most shoulds are not any of those things. They are internalized voices of others who had their own agendas, wounds, and limitations. They are cultural programming designed for social cohesion, not individual fulfillment. They are outdated rules that may have served a purpose once but no longer apply to your adult life. Yet they run constantly in the background, criticizing every choice that deviates from their narrow path. You should be more successful. You should be married by now. You should want children. You should be further along in your career. You should be more social. You should be more independent. You should make more money. You should be more ambitious. You should be more content. These conflicting shoulds create constant internal tension because you cannot simultaneously be more ambitious and more content, more social and more independent. The shoulds are often contradictory, yet each feels absolutely mandatory. Shoulds create guilt and shame. When you do not do what you think you should, you feel guilty. When you are not who you think you should be, you feel ashamed. This guilt and shame accomplish nothing useful. They do not motivate genuine change. They do not create authentic growth. They just make you feel bad about yourself while keeping you trapped in patterns that do not serve you. Shoulds prevent you from knowing what you actually want because your authentic desires are buried under layers of what you think you should want. You do not know if you want children or think you should want them. You do not know if you want career success or think you should want it. You do not know if you like social gatherings or think you should like them. Beneath every should is a real preference waiting to be discovered, but you cannot access it while the should is running the show. The first step in dismantling the should prison is identifying your shoulds. Make a list. What are all the things you tell yourself you should do, should be, should want? Get them out of your head and onto paper where you can examine them objectively. Just the act of listing them begins to loosen their grip because you are treating them as optional beliefs rather than absolute truths. The second step is questioning each should. Where did this come from? Whose voice is this originally? Does this should actually align with my values? Or is it someone else's value I have adopted? Does following this should create fulfillment or just approval? What would happen if I did not follow this should? Often, you will discover that the catastrophes you fear from not shoulding yourself are either unlikely or less terrible than the constant self-judgment of following shoulds that do not fit. The third step is distinguishing between authentic values and imported shoulds. Authentic values feel aligned and energizing even when they require effort. They are chosen consciously and reflect what genuinely matters to you. Shoulds feel obligatory and draining. They are unconsciously adopted and reflect what someone else thinks should matter. Learning this distinction helps you keep values that serve you while releasing shoulds that do not. The fourth step is giving yourself permission to want what you actually want rather than what you think you should want. This is revolutionary. You can want a quiet life even though society says you should be ambitious. You can want adventure even though your family says you should be stable. You can want solitude even though culture says you should be social. Your wants are valid simply because they are yours. They do not need external validation. The fifth step is replacing should with could or choose. Instead of I should exercise, try I could exercise, or I choose to exercise. This linguistic shift transforms obligation into choice. You might discover you genuinely want to exercise when it is a choice rather than a should. Or you might discover you do not actually care about exercise and only do it because you think you should, which allows you to drop it without guilt or choose it consciously rather than compulsively. The sixth step is accepting that releasing shoulds might disappoint people. When you stop living according to their shoulds, people who benefited from your compliance will be unhappy. This is uncomfortable but necessary. Their disappointment is information about their expectations, not evidence that you are wrong. You can acknowledge their feelings without changing your authentic choices to prevent them. The seventh step is building tolerance for the guilt that arises when you violate a should. Initially, when you do something that contradicts your shoulds, guilt will arise automatically. This guilt is conditioned response, not moral guidance. Practice sitting with the guilt without immediately returning to should-based behavior to relieve it. The guilt will decrease over time as you prove to yourself that violating shoulds does not lead to catastrophe. The eighth step is consciously choosing values to guide you rather than unconsciously following shoulds. What actually matters to you? What kind of person do you want to be? What kind of life do you want to create? Let these conscious values guide your choices rather than unconscious shoulds. Values feel different from shoulds. They energize rather than drain. They clarify rather than confuse. They are yours rather than imported. Dismantling the should prison does not mean becoming irresponsible or amoral. It means taking conscious responsibility for your choices rather than blindly following rules you never examined. It means building an internal compass based on your authentic values rather than external compliance based on others' expectations. It means recognizing that you get to define what a good life looks like for you, and that definition might look nothing like anyone else's definition. This is not failure. This is success. This is living for yourself. Chapter 6. The Art of Saying No. If you want to live for yourself rather than others, you must master the single most powerful two-letter word in the language: no. Your inability to say no is probably the primary mechanism by which you abandon yourself and live for others. Every yes you give when you mean no is a betrayal of yourself. Every agreement to something that drains you is a theft of time and energy from what actually matters to you. Learning to say no skillfully, consistently, and without excessive guilt is non-negotiable for reclaiming your life. Most people struggle enormously with no because they have been taught that saying no is mean, selfish, or rude. They have internalized the message that accommodating others' requests is virtuous and that declining makes them bad people. But this is backward. Saying yes when you mean no is actually the mean thing to do because it is dishonest, creates resentment, and prevents authentic connection. Saying no when you mean no is honest, respects both parties, and creates space for genuine yes. People who cannot say no are controlled by others' requests and demands. Their time, energy, and life are determined by whoever asks rather than by their own priorities and desires. They live reactively, responding to the loudest or most recent demand, never getting to what actually matters to them because they are too busy doing what everyone else wants. This is not a life. This is servitude disguised as niceness. The inability to say no stems from several core fears. Fear that saying no will result in rejection or abandonment. Fear that declining a request means you do not care. Fear that others will be angry or hurt. Fear that you will be seen as selfish, difficult, or unhelpful. These fears keep you trapped in chronic yes, even when yes is destroying you. But these fears are usually disproportionate to reality. Most people will not abandon you for one no. Most people will not even be significantly upset. And the people who do reject you for setting reasonable boundaries are people you do not want in your life anyway. Saying no becomes easier when you understand that no is a complete sentence. You do not need to justify, explain, or defend your no. You do not need to provide a reason that others deem acceptable. You simply decline. No, I cannot do that. No, that does not work for me. No, I am not available. These are complete responses. The discomfort you feel saying them is not a sign you should add more explanation. It is the discomfort of breaking an old pattern, which is temporary and worth pushing through. That said, you can include a brief reason if you choose, but keep it simple and resist the urge to over-explain. I cannot help you move this weekend. I have prior commitments. I am not taking on new projects right now. I need to focus on my own priorities. These brief explanations provide context without opening negotiation. When you over-explain, you signal that your no is weak and can be challenged. When you explain briefly and stop, you signal that your no is final. Prepare for the discomfort that follows your no. The other person might be disappointed, confused, or upset. They might pressure you to change your mind. They might try to make you feel guilty. These reactions are their problem, not yours. You do not need to manage their emotions or fix their disappointment. You can acknowledge their feelings without changing your decision. I understand you are disappointed, and my answer is still no. This both validates them and maintains your boundary. Practice saying no to small requests in low-stakes situations to build your no muscle. Decline the invitation to an event you do not want to attend. Say no to the request for a small favor you do not want to do. Turn down the opportunity that sounds interesting, but you do not have time for. Each small no strengthens your capacity for larger ones and proves to you that saying no does not lead to catastrophe. Distinguish between real obligations and false obligations. Real obligations are commitments you consciously chose that align with your values. Taking care of your children is a real obligation. Showing up for work you agreed to do is a real obligation. False obligations are demands others place on you that you never actually agreed to. Being available 24/7 to anyone who calls is a false obligation. Attending every event you are invited to is a false obligation. Solving every problem presented to you is a false obligation. Release the false obligations without guilt. Use the pause before responding. When someone makes a request, resist the urge to answer immediately. Say, "Let me check my calendar and get back to you," or "I need to think about that." This pause gives you space to feel into whether you actually want to say yes rather than automatically agreeing out of habit. If your gut reaction during the pause is dread or resentment, that is your answer. No. Recognize that saying no to them is saying yes to yourself. Every time you decline something that does not serve you, you create space for something that does. Every no to someone else's agenda is a yes to your own. When you frame it this way, saying no becomes an act of self-care rather than an act of cruelty. You are not rejecting them. You are choosing yourself. Expect and accept that some people will not like your no. Some people have become accustomed to your yes and will resist your new boundaries. This resistance is not evidence that you are wrong. It is evidence that they benefited from your lack of boundaries and do not want to lose that benefit. Their preference for your continued self-abandonment is not more important than your need for self-preservation. Celebrate your no's. Each time you say no when you mean no, acknowledge yourself. That took courage. That was self-honoring. That was choosing yourself. These celebrations reinforce the behavior and build momentum. Over time, saying no becomes more natural and less guilt-inducing because you have proven repeatedly that it does not destroy you or your relationships. Saying no is not about becoming unhelpful or unkind. It is about being selective with your yes so that when you do say yes, it is genuine, enthusiastic, and from a place of capacity rather than depletion. Your yeses become more meaningful when they are chosen rather than compelled. Your relationships become healthier when they are based on mutual respect for boundaries rather than one person's endless accommodation. Your life becomes yours when you protect it with strategic, guilt-free no's. Chapter 7. Discovering your authentic self. Living for yourself requires knowing who yourself actually is. Yet most people who have spent years living for others have no idea who they are beneath the performance. They have been so busy being who others want them to be that they have lost contact with their authentic self. Discovering or rediscovering who you actually are is essential work that cannot be skipped if you want to live an authentic life. Your authentic self is not something you create. It is something you uncover. It has been there all along beneath the layers of conditioning, performance, and adaptation. But it has been buried for so long that excavating it requires conscious, deliberate effort. This is archaeology of the soul, brushing away decades of dust to reveal what has always been there waiting. Start by exploring what you actually like, independent of what you think you should like or what others expect you to like. What foods do you genuinely enjoy? What activities energize you? What environments feel good to you? What topics fascinate you? Do not answer based on your identity or image. Answer based on your actual experience. You might discover that you have been forcing yourself to enjoy things that bore you and avoiding things that actually bring you pleasure because they do not fit your image or others' expectations. Notice what you are naturally drawn to when you are not performing or trying to be someone. What do you gravitate toward when no one is watching or judging? What captures your attention effortlessly? What do you lose track of time doing? These natural inclinations are clues to your authentic self. They reveal your genuine interests and preferences rather than the ones you have adopted to fit in or impress. Explore your values, what actually matters to you, rather than what you think should matter. If you could live your life according to any values you choose, with no judgment from anyone, what would you choose? Connection, freedom, creativity, security, adventure, knowledge, contribution. Your authentic values might surprise you and might differ significantly from the values you have been performing. Examine your personality beneath the adaptations. Are you naturally introverted or extroverted? Do you prefer structure or flexibility? Are you more thinking or feeling oriented? More spontaneous or planned? You might have been forcing yourself into a personality type that does not fit your natural temperament because that is what your family, culture, or profession expected. Discovering your actual personality allows you to structure your life in ways that work with rather than against your nature. Investigate your desires without censoring them. What do you actually want for your life? Not what you think you should want, not what would look good, not what would please others. What do you genuinely desire? These desires might be unconventional, impractical, or confusing. Write them down anyway. Your authentic desires are valid even if they do not make sense to others or even to you yet. Reflect on moments when you felt most alive, most yourself, most in flow. What were you doing? Who were you with? What conditions were present? These peak experiences reveal your authentic self in action. They show you what alignment feels like and provide a template for creating more of that feeling in your life. Notice what you naturally excel at without much effort. Your authentic strengths often feel so natural that you do not recognize them as special. You assume everyone can do what you do easily, but they cannot. Your natural gifts are clues to your authentic self and hints about how you might want to contribute and express yourself in the world. Explore what you naturally care about. What injustices upset you? What problems do you want to solve? What populations do you feel drawn to help? What causes matter to you? Your authentic passions reveal themselves through what captures your heart and moves you to action. These might differ from the causes you think you should care about or that your peer group focuses on. Pay attention to your body's signals. Your body knows your authentic truth, even when your mind has lost touch with it. Notice what makes your body relax and what makes it tense. What activities leave you energized versus depleted? What environments feel good versus draining? Your body is giving you constant feedback about alignment with your authentic self if you learn to listen. Examine your past before you learn to perform. Who were you as a young child before you understood that love might be conditional? What did you love doing? What were you naturally drawn to? What was your temperament? That child is still in you beneath the adaptations. Reconnecting with who you were before you learned to be someone else reveals your authentic core. Be willing to be surprised by what you discover. Your authentic self might not match your current identity, image, or life structure. You might discover you are more introverted than you thought, more creative than practical, more adventurous than stable, more emotional than logical. These discoveries might require life changes that feel scary, but living as someone you are not is scarier in the long run. Give yourself permission to change your mind about who you thought you were. Maybe you have identified as an extrovert your whole life, but discover you are actually an introvert who learned to perform extroversion. Maybe you thought you wanted conventional success, but discover you value freedom more. Maybe you thought you were suited for your career, but discover it was never a genuine fit. These revelations are not failures. They are liberating truths. Create time and space for exploration. Discovery of your authentic self does not happen in the midst of constant busyness and performance. It requires quiet, solitude, and unstructured time. Take yourself on solo dates. Sit in silence. Journal. Walk without destination. Give yourself permission to be without doing. In these spaces, your authentic self can emerge. Share your emerging authentic self with safe people who you trust to accept rather than judge. Test what it feels like to be more real in your relationships. Notice who celebrates your authenticity and who tries to pull you back into performance. This information helps you understand which relationships can grow with you and which might need to change as you become more yourself. Discovering your authentic self is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. You will continue uncovering new layers throughout your life, but the initial excavation, digging through the conditioning to find the core of who you actually are, is profound and necessary work. Without knowing who you are, you cannot live for yourself. You will just continue performing whatever role seems most acceptable, wondering why success feels empty and achievement feels hollow. Chapter 8. Building a Self-Authored Life. Once you know who you are, the next step is building a life that reflects that truth. A self-authored life is one designed according to your values, shaped by your desires, and structured around your authentic self. It is the opposite of a life lived according to others' scripts, expectations, and demands. Creating this life requires courage, creativity, and commitment, but it is the only life worth living. A self-authored life starts with getting clear on your vision. If you could design your ideal life with no constraints or judgments, what would it look like? Where would you live? What would you do? Who would you spend time with? How would you spend your days? What would you create or contribute? Get as specific as possible. This vision becomes your North Star, guiding decisions and helping you distinguish between opportunities that move you toward your authentic life and distractions that pull you away from it. Audit your current life against your vision. What aspects of your current life align with your authentic self and vision? These you keep and strengthen. What aspects conflict with your authentic self and drain your energy? These you need to change or eliminate. This audit reveals the gap between the life you have and the life you want, which can be sobering, but also clarifying. You cannot change what you do not acknowledge. Start making changes from the inside out. Begin with internal shifts. How you think about yourself, how you speak to yourself, what you value, what you tolerate, what boundaries you set. These internal changes often naturally lead to external changes without forced action. As you shift internally, your external choices shift to match your new internal reality. Make decisions based on your values rather than others' expectations. Every choice is an opportunity to author your life or abdicate that authorship to others. Big decisions about career, relationships, location, but also small daily decisions about how you spend your time, what you say yes to, how you show up. Let your authentic values guide these choices rather than what looks good, what others expect, or what seems safe. Be willing to disappoint people as you build your authentic life. When you make choices that reflect your truth rather than their expectations, some people will be disappointed, confused, or upset. This is inevitable. You can have compassion for their feelings without changing your authentic choices. Their adjustment to your authenticity is their work, not your responsibility. Expect and plan for the identity crisis that often accompanies building a self-authored life. When you stop being who you have been, there is a gap before you fully become who you are. This gap is uncomfortable. You might feel lost, confused, or like you do not know yourself. This is normal and temporary. You are in the chrysalis, neither caterpillar nor butterfly. Trust the process of transformation, even when it feels destabilizing. Build gradually, rather than blowing up your entire life overnight. Dramatic overnight changes rarely stick and often create more problems than they solve. Instead, make incremental shifts in the direction of your authentic life. Each small change builds momentum and confidence for the next larger change. Over time, these incremental shifts compound into profound transformation. Create support systems for your self-authored life. Find people who support your authenticity rather than your performance. Seek out communities aligned with your authentic values. Work with coaches, therapists, or mentors who can guide you through the process of life redesign. Building a self-authored life is challenging work. You do not need to do it alone. Be willing to experiment and adjust. Your first attempt at a self-authored life will not be perfect. You might discover that what you thought you wanted does not actually fulfill you once you have it. This is valuable information, not failure. Adjust your course based on actual experience rather than theoretical desires. Your authentic life emerges through experimentation and refinement, not through getting it perfect on the first try. Handle the grief that might arise. As you build your authentic life, you might grieve the years you spent living for others. You might grieve relationships that cannot adapt to your authenticity. You might grieve the path not taken because you followed someone else's script. This grief is valid and important. Allow yourself to feel it without getting stuck in it. Grief is part of the process of letting go of what was so you can embrace what is. Celebrate your courage. Every choice you make toward authenticity requires courage because it goes against years of conditioning and often against others' preferences. Acknowledge yourself for each brave choice, for each boundary set, for each authentic expression, for each decision based on your truth rather than their expectations. This celebration reinforces your progress and motivates continued movement toward your self-authored life. Remember that a self-authored life is not a selfish life. When you live authentically, you bring your best self to your relationships, work, and communities. You contribute from your genuine strengths rather than performing obligatory service. You model authenticity, giving others permission to discover and live their own truth. Your self-authored life ultimately benefits everyone because you become who you are meant to be, rather than a diluted version performing what others wanted. Building a self-authored life is the practical implementation of living for yourself. It is taking the inner work of discovering your authentic self and manifesting it in concrete choices, structures, and daily reality. It is the bridge between knowing who you are and actually living as who you are. It is challenging, sometimes painful, always worthwhile work that creates the only life truly worth living, one that is genuinely yours. Chapter 9: Navigating Relationships While Living for Yourself. One of the biggest fears people have about living for yourself is that it will destroy their relationships. They fear that if they stop pleasing, performing, and accommodating, everyone will leave. This fear is not entirely unfounded. Some relationships will change or end when you start living for yourself. But understanding how to navigate relationships from a place of authenticity reveals that you do not have to choose between yourself and connection. You can have both. First, understand that relationships based on your performance are not real relationships. If someone only values you when you are meeting their needs, pleasing them, or being who they want you to be, they do not actually value you. They value what you provide. These transactional relationships might look like relationships, but they lack the genuine intimacy and mutual care that characterize real connection. Losing these is not loss. It is liberation from dynamics that were harming you. Real relationships can handle your authenticity. In fact, they require it. Genuine intimacy is only possible when both people are showing up as their authentic selves. When you stop performing and start being real, relationships that can evolve will deepen. Relationships that cannot will fade. This is the natural sorting process that occurs when you shift from performance to authenticity. Communicate your changes to important people in your life. When you start living for yourself, people who are used to your accommodating ways will be confused by your new boundaries and authentic choices. Help them understand. I am making changes in my life to be more authentic and true to myself. This might mean I cannot do everything I used to do or be as available as I have been. This communication does not ask permission, but it provides context that can reduce confusion and conflict. Be prepared for resistance from people who benefited from your self-abandonment. Your partner who got their way constantly will resist your new boundaries. Your family who relied on your endless accommodation will be upset by your new limits. Your friends who are used to your yes will be confused by your no. This resistance is not evidence you are wrong. It is evidence that the dynamic is changing, and they preferred the old dynamic where your needs did not matter. Set and maintain boundaries without guilt. Boundaries are not punishments or attacks on others. They are guidelines that protect your well-being and teach people how to treat you. I am not available after 9 p.m. I need advance notice for plans. I do not discuss my personal choices with extended family. I need time alone to recharge. These boundaries might disappoint others initially, but healthy people will adapt. Unhealthy people will escalate, which gives you valuable information about the relationship. Practice authentic communication rather than people-pleasing communication. Say what you actually think and feel rather than what you think others want to hear. Express disagreement when you genuinely disagree. Share your needs rather than pretending you do not have any. This authentic communication feels vulnerable because you are revealing your true self, but it creates the possibility for genuine connection rather than surface pleasantness. Let go of relationships that cannot adapt to your authenticity. Some people are so invested in who you were or who they need you to be that they cannot accept who you actually are. This is painful, but staying in relationships that require self-betrayal is more painful. Release these relationships with compassion for everyone involved, recognizing that incompatibility is not anyone's fault, but is real and important to honor. Seek out and cultivate relationships with people who appreciate your authentic self. As you become more real, you will naturally attract different people. People who value authenticity. People who have done their own work. People who can meet you as you are, rather than needing you to be someone else. Invest your energy in these relationships. Let them grow and deepen. These are your people. Be authentic in new relationships from the start. Do not fall back into performing to attract people. Show up as your real self from the first interaction. This might mean fewer people are interested, but the people who are interested will be interested in the actual you. This creates relationships with honest foundations rather than relationships built on false pretenses that will eventually crumble. Balance honoring yourself with consideration for others. Living for yourself does not mean becoming inconsiderate or cruel. You can make choices that honor your needs while also considering their feelings. You can set boundaries while communicating them kindly. You can pursue your path while being respectful of others' paths. The goal is not to disregard others, but to properly regard yourself alongside them rather than beneath them. Model healthy boundaries and authenticity for your children. If you have children, one of the greatest gifts you can give them is the example of a parent who lives authentically and sets healthy boundaries. They will learn from your actions far more than your words. When they see you honoring yourself, they learn to honor themselves. When they see you setting boundaries, they learn that boundaries are normal and healthy. Your self-authorship becomes permission for their own. Accept that living for yourself might make you less popular, but more genuinely connected. You might have fewer relationships when you stop performing for everyone, but the relationships you have will be deeper, more real, and more satisfying. Quality over quantity. A few genuine connections based on authenticity are worth infinitely more than countless surface connections based on performance. Understand that people's reactions to your authenticity reveal their character, not your worth. When you start living for yourself and someone responds with anger, manipulation, or rejection, that is information about them. It reveals that they valued what you provided more than who you are. It reveals their inability to handle your growth. It reveals the conditional nature of their care. None of this reflects on your worthiness or your choices. It simply reveals who they are. Living for yourself in relationships means showing up as your whole, authentic self and accepting only relationships that can receive and value that self. It means releasing the fantasy that you can be liked by everyone if you just perform correctly. It means accepting that your real self will not appeal to everyone, and that this is not only okay, but good. It means understanding that disappointing people by being yourself is better than pleasing people by betraying yourself. Navigating relationships while living for yourself is not about choosing between connection and authenticity. It is about insisting on both. Chapter 10. Handling guilt and dealing with pushback. When you start living for yourself after years of living for others, two experiences are inevitable: guilt and pushback. Understanding these experiences and developing strategies to handle them is essential for maintaining your commitment to authentic living when the discomfort arises. Guilt is the emotion that arises when you believe you have done something wrong. But when you start living for yourself, guilt often arises even when you have done nothing wrong. You have just done something different from what others expected or what you are used to doing. This guilt is conditioned response, not moral guidance. It is the alarm system that protected you as a child by keeping you compliant, but it no longer serves you as an adult. The guilt voice sounds very convincing. How can you be so selfish? Think about how this affects others. You are being cruel. You are letting people down. These accusations feel true and create enormous pressure to return to people-pleasing and self-abandonment. But when you examine them closely, you will often find they are based on distorted beliefs about what you owe others and faulty assumptions about what selfishness actually means. Distinguish between healthy guilt and toxic guilt. Healthy guilt arises when you actually violate your values or harm someone unnecessarily. If you lied, betrayed trust, or acted cruelly, guilt is appropriate feedback guiding you to make amends and choose differently next time. Toxic guilt arises when you honor your own needs, set reasonable boundaries, or make choices others disapprove of. This guilt is not moral guidance. It is conditioning trying to keep you compliant. When guilt arises, pause and examine it. What exactly am I feeling guilty about? Did I actually do something wrong, or did I just do something different? Did I harm someone, or just disappoint them? Is this guilt based on my values or on their expectations? This examination helps you distinguish between guilt that deserves attention and guilt that deserves dismissal. Practice guilt tolerance. Guilt is uncomfortable, but discomfort is not danger. You can feel guilty about setting a boundary and still maintain that boundary. You can feel guilty about disappointing someone and still honor your authentic choice. The guilt will decrease over time as you prove to yourself repeatedly that honoring yourself does not lead to catastrophe. But initially, you have to sit with the guilt without immediately trying to relieve it by returning to people-pleasing. Reframe the guilt. Instead of, "I feel guilty for being selfish," try, "I feel guilty because I am breaking old patterns and this is unfamiliar." Instead of, "I am a bad person for disappointing them," try, "I am learning to disappoint others when necessary to honor myself," which is healthy, even though it feels uncomfortable. This reframing acknowledges the discomfort without accepting the guilt's interpretation of your actions as wrong. Use affirmations to counter the guilt voice. I am allowed to honor my own needs. I am not responsible for managing everyone's emotions. Disappointing others is sometimes necessary and okay. I do not have to justify my choices to anyone. My needs are as valid as everyone else's needs. These affirmations provide alternative perspectives to the guilt narrative. Pushback is the external manifestation of others' displeasure with your new authenticity. When you start living for yourself, people who preferred you living for them will push back in various ways. They might express disappointment or anger directly. They might use guilt trips or manipulation to try to get you to return to old patterns. They might recruit others to pressure you. They might withdraw affection or connection as punishment. Understanding common pushback tactics helps you recognize and respond to them. The disappointment tactic. They express how hurt, disappointed, or upset they are by your choices. I cannot believe you are doing this. I thought you cared about me. This is so unlike you. The goal is to make you feel bad enough that you change your choices to relieve their disappointment. Response. Acknowledge their feelings without changing your decision. I understand you are disappointed, and this is still my choice. The guilt trip tactic. They remind you of everything they have done for you, frame your authentic choices as betrayals, or compare you unfavorably to others. After all I have done for you, your sister would never act this way. I guess I just do not matter to you. The goal is to create enough guilt that you comply. Response. Refuse to accept responsibility for their emotions. I appreciate what you have done for me, and I still get to make my own choices. The manipulation tactic. They threaten consequences or suggest catastrophes if you do not comply. If you do this, I do not know if I can continue our relationship. You are making a huge mistake you will regret. You are going to end up alone. The goal is to scare you back into compliance. Response. Call their bluff and maintain your boundary. I will have to accept those consequences because this choice is right for me. The recruitment tactic. They bring in other people to convince you that you are wrong. They tell family members who then call you. They create group pressure where everyone weighs in on your choices. The goal is to overwhelm you with numbers. Response. Set boundaries about discussing your personal choices. I am not discussing this with anyone except you, and my decision is final. The silent treatment tactic. They withdraw, give you the cold shoulder, or stop communicating as punishment for your authentic choices. The goal is to make you so uncomfortable that you apologize and return to old patterns. Response. Do not chase or try to fix it. Give them space and maintain your boundary. When they are ready to reconnect respectfully, you are available. The invalidation tactic. They dismiss your needs, minimize your feelings, or gaslight you about your experience. You are being too sensitive. You are overreacting. That never happened. The goal is to make you doubt your own perceptions and revert to their version of reality. Response. Trust your own experience. My perception is valid, even if you do not share it. When facing pushback, remember that their discomfort with your growth is not your problem to fix. You are not responsible for managing their emotions about your life choices. They are adults who can handle their own feelings. Your job is to honor yourself, not to keep them comfortable with you dishonoring yourself. Prepare responses in advance for predictable pushback. If you know certain people will react certain ways to your changes, prepare your responses. Practice saying them out loud. Have them ready so that when the pushback comes, you are not caught off guard and reverting to old patterns in the discomfort of the moment. Seek support from people who understand what you are doing. When you are facing guilt and pushback, it is essential to have people in your corner who can remind you that you are not crazy, you are not selfish, and you are doing the right thing for yourself. Find a therapist, coach, support group, or trusted friends who support your growth and can help you stay strong when pushback intensifies. Remember that pushback usually decreases over time. Initially, when you change patterns, the pushback is intense because people are trying to return the relationship to its familiar dynamic. But if you stay consistent with your boundaries and authentic choices, most people eventually adapt. They realize their tactics are not working, and they accept the new normal. The ones who cannot adapt typically exit the relationship, which is information about the relationship's health, not about your choices. Handling guilt and pushback is the price of admission to living for yourself. These discomforts are not signs you are doing something wrong. They are signs you are doing something new, something that challenges old dysfunctional patterns, something that honors you instead of abandoning you. The guilt and pushback are temporary. The freedom and authenticity you gain are permanent. This trade is worth it. Chapter 11. The financial dimension of living for yourself. One aspect of living for yourself that is often overlooked, but critically important, is the financial dimension. Many people remain trapped living for others because they are financially dependent on those people, or because their financial choices were made to impress others rather than support their authentic life. Understanding and addressing the financial aspects of living for yourself is essential for complete freedom. Financial dependence creates power imbalance that makes authentic living difficult or impossible. If your parent, partner, or anyone else controls your money, they control your choices. They can use financial leverage to enforce compliance with their expectations. He who pays the piper calls the tune. Breaking free to live for yourself often requires gaining financial independence, which might mean earning your own money, building savings, or reducing lifestyle expenses to match income you can generate independently. Many people make career choices based on others' expectations rather than their own interests and values. They pursue fields that impress their parents, make money that impresses their peer group, or chase titles that look good on social media. They end up in careers that drain them but pay well or look prestigious. This is trading your life energy and daily experience for external validation, which is a bad trade. Living for yourself means choosing work that aligns with your authentic interests and values, even if it pays less or impresses fewer people. Examine your financial choices through the lens of living for yourself versus living for others. Is your home chosen because you love it or because it impresses people? Is your car what you actually want or what signals success? Are your clothes, vacations, possessions chosen for your genuine enjoyment or for their image value? How much of your money is spent on performance and how much on authentic pleasure and well-being? This examination reveals where you are financially supporting a performed life rather than an authentic one. Consider lifestyle design that supports your authentic life rather than impressing others. You might discover that you can live much less expensively if you stop buying for image and start buying for genuine value. This might free you to work less, pursue different work, or build savings that provide security for making authentic choices others might not understand. Reducing fixed expenses and lifestyle inflation creates freedom to live more authentically. Build fuck you money, savings sufficient to give you options, and reduce dependence on anyone's approval or support. Even a modest emergency fund provides buffer between you and having to accept situations that require self-betrayal. Building savings is building freedom. Every dollar saved is a dollar of reduced dependence on others' opinions, approval, or financial support. Be strategic about financial discussions with people who might use money to control you. If you are working toward financial independence from family or partner, be discreet about your plans until you are secure. People who use financial leverage to control others often escalate when they sense that control slipping. Protect yourself by maintaining privacy about finances and plans until you are in a position where they cannot derail your progress. Recognize that living for yourself might require a period of financial simplicity or struggle as you transition from work chosen for others to work chosen for yourself. You might need to downsize, live lean, or sacrifice short-term financial comfort for long-term authentic satisfaction. This is worth it. Trading money for authenticity is trading well. Trading authenticity for money is trading poorly. Most people realize too late that they made the wrong trade. Address money scripts and beliefs inherited from family or culture that might keep you trapped. If you grew up believing that money equals worth, that you must pursue the highest income possible, that financial security is more important than fulfillment, or that choosing work you love is naive and impractical, these beliefs will sabotage your attempts to live authentically. Examine and challenge these beliefs. They are not universal truths. They are opinions you can choose to reject. Invest in yourself and your authentic development even when it costs money. Therapy, coaching, education, or training that supports your authentic path is worth the investment. Books, courses, workshops that help you discover and live as your authentic self are not frivolous expenses. They are investments in your one life. You cannot take your money with you, but you do have to live with your choices while you are here. Create multiple income streams if possible, so your financial security is not dependent on one source that might require compromise. Diversified income provides options and reduces pressure to accept work situations that require self-betrayal. Side projects, freelance work, investments, or passive income can provide the financial cushion that allows authentic career choices. Be honest with yourself about whether you actually need as much money as you think you need. Many people stay in soul-crushing work because they believe they need the income, but when examined closely, the need is actually a want for a certain lifestyle. There is nothing wrong with wanting a certain lifestyle, but be honest that you are choosing it and that it comes with the cost of whatever work is required to fund it. If you find yourself saying, "I have to work this job," ask if that is actually true, or if you want to work this job to maintain your current lifestyle, which is different. Plan for the financial transition from living for others to living for yourself. This might require building savings first, reducing expenses gradually, or finding bridge work that provides income while you transition to your authentic path. Having a financial plan reduces the anxiety of change and makes authentic living feel more possible and less like reckless fantasy. Remember that while money provides options and reduces dependence, it is not the point. The point is living authentically. If you can do that in your current financial circumstances, do not wait for perfect financial conditions to start. But if financial circumstances are truly constraining your authenticity, address them strategically as part of your overall plan to reclaim your life. The financial dimension of living for yourself is about aligning your earning, spending, and saving with your authentic values and life design. It is about building financial independence so your choices are not controlled by others' financial leverage. It is about recognizing when financial choices are being made for performance rather than authentic life support and adjusting accordingly. Money is not the enemy of authentic living, but using money to perform for others while abandoning yourself is. Conscious financial choices support living for yourself. Unconscious financial performance supports living for others. Chapter 12. The courage to be disliked. One of the final and most important shifts required to live for yourself rather than others is developing what philosopher Alfred Adler called the courage to be disliked. This is the willingness to make authentic choices even when those choices result in others' disapproval, disappointment, or dislike. For most people who have spent their lives seeking approval, this courage feels impossible, but it is absolutely necessary. The fundamental insight is that being liked by everyone is impossible. Your authentic self, like everyone's authentic self, will naturally appeal to some people and not to others. This is not a problem. This is reality. The problem arises when you try to be liked by everyone by performing different versions of yourself for different audiences. This performance prevents anyone from actually knowing and liking the real you. Examine your fear of being disliked. What do you actually fear will happen if someone does not like you? Usually, the fear is rooted in childhood experiences where disapproval meant danger. You might have experienced rejection, punishment, or withdrawal of love when you displeased important adults. Your nervous system learned that disapproval equals threat. But you are not a dependent child anymore. Adult disapproval is uncomfortable, not dangerous. Recognize that someone not liking you says more about compatibility than about your worth. You do not like everyone you meet. This does not mean those people are worthless or bad. It means you are not compatible. The same is true in reverse. When someone does not like you, it usually means you are not compatible, not that you are fundamentally flawed. This reframe reduces the sting of disapproval. Understand that trying to be liked by everyone is actually disrespecting yourself. It is saying that everyone else's opinion matters more than your own experience. It is saying that their comfort is more important than your authenticity. It is treating yourself as less than others. Self-respect requires accepting that you cannot and should not try to please everyone. Practice being disliked in small ways. Express an unpopular opinion. Make a choice others question. Wear something others might judge. Each time you survive disapproval, you build evidence that being disliked is not catastrophic. You realize you can handle it. Your fear decreases through exposure. Stop performing for audiences that do not matter. You will never see 99% of the people you encounter again. Their opinions have zero impact on your actual life. Yet many people curate themselves for strangers' approval. Save your energy. Be authentically yourself with strangers. Practice not caring what they think. This builds your capacity to not care what people who do matter think. Recognize that the people who matter will love you more when you are authentic. Real connection requires real selves. When you show up authentically, you might lose surface relationships, but you deepen genuine ones. People who truly care about you want to know the real you, not your performance. Your authenticity is a gift to them, even if it surprises or challenges them. Accept that growth and change means some people will not like new you, even if they liked old you. When you evolve past old patterns, old identities, old compromises, people attached to who you were will resist who you are becoming. Their disapproval is not a sign to stop growing. It is information about their inability or unwillingness to grow with you. Let them go with love. Build identity independent of others' opinions. Who are you when no one is watching? What do you value when no one cares? What choices would you make if you knew you could not fail and no one would judge? Let these answers guide you rather than the crowd's applause or criticism. Your identity sourced from within is stable. Your identity sourced from others' opinions is volatile and unsustainable. Find your people who appreciate your authentic self. As you become more real, you will attract different people. People who value authenticity over performance. People who have done their own work and can meet you as you are. People who celebrate your growth rather than resisting it. Invest in these relationships. Let them remind you that being your authentic self is not only okay, but attractive to the right people. Remember that disapproval is temporary. People's reactions fade. What felt like a huge conflict or disappointment becomes forgotten or normalized over time. But the cost of abandoning yourself to avoid temporary disapproval is permanent. You lose years, decades, or your entire life to performance. Temporary disapproval is a small price for lifelong authenticity. Develop phrases for handling disapproval. I understand this is not what you want, and it is what I am choosing. I hear that you disagree, and I am comfortable with my decision. I can accept that you are disappointed while still honoring my choice. These phrases acknowledge others' feelings without changing your authentic choices to manage their feelings. Celebrate each time you choose authenticity over approval. Notice when you make the brave choice to be yourself despite potential or actual disapproval. Acknowledge yourself. This took courage. This honored me. This was living for myself. These celebrations strengthen your capacity to continue choosing authenticity. The courage to be disliked is ultimately the courage to value your own opinion of yourself more than others' opinions of you. It is the courage to recognize that your life is yours to live, not theirs to approve. It is the courage to understand that universal likability requires universal inauthenticity, which is too high a price to pay. It is the courage to be yourself fully and accept that this self will be loved by some and disliked by others, and that this is not only okay, but exactly how it should be. Chapter 13. Living for yourself in the long term. Living for yourself is not a one-time decision, but a daily practice that must be maintained long-term. Understanding how to sustain authentic living over years and decades through various life circumstances and challenges is essential for making this shift permanent rather than temporary. The initial energy and motivation you feel when you first start living for yourself will fade. This is normal. All new patterns feel exciting at first, then become routine, then require conscious maintenance. Expect the novelty to wear off and plan for sustaining the practice beyond initial enthusiasm. Create systems and structures that support living for yourself rather than relying on willpower alone. Daily check-ins where you ask yourself if your choices today honored you or others. Weekly reviews of your time and energy allocation. Monthly audits of whether your life is aligning with your values and authentic desires. These structures catch drift back toward old patterns before it becomes complete regression. Expect periodic backsliding into people-pleasing or performing. You will slip sometimes, especially under stress or in unfamiliar situations. This is not failure. This is normal. What matters is catching the backslide early and consciously returning to authentic choices rather than getting discouraged and abandoning the whole practice. Continuously refine your understanding of yourself. Your authentic self is not static. Your values might evolve. Your desires might change. Your interests might shift. Living for yourself in the long term means continuously updating your understanding of who you are and adjusting your life accordingly, rather than locking into one version of authentic and never reassessing. Build community with others committed to authentic living. Long-term change is much easier with support, accountability, and shared values. Whether through therapy groups, coaching programs, online communities, or friendships with people on similar paths, having others who understand and support your commitment to living for yourself helps sustain it through difficult periods. Develop resilience for the ongoing discomfort of authenticity. Living for yourself does not become completely comfortable. It becomes familiar, but there will always be moments of choosing yourself over others' comfort, which creates tension. Building your capacity to tolerate this tension long-term without reverting to people-pleasing is essential. Create positive feedback loops that reinforce authentic living. Notice and celebrate how living for yourself improves your life. Better mental health, more satisfying relationships, greater sense of meaning, more energy. When you consciously connect these benefits to your choice to live authentically, you reinforce the behavior and make it more likely to continue. Adjust your environment over time to better support authentic living. As you grow, you might need to change jobs, move locations, shift friendships, or restructure your life in ways that better align with your authentic self. Be willing to make these adjustments rather than trying to force your authentic self into environments designed for your performing self. Teach these principles to the next generation. If you have children or mentor younger people, your greatest gift is modeling authentic living. Show them that it is possible to honor yourself, set boundaries, make choices based on your values, and live according to your truth. Your example gives them permission to do the same, breaking generational patterns of self-abandonment and performance. Accept that living for yourself is countercultural and will always require conscious effort. The dominant culture pushes conformity, performance, and living according to external standards. You will constantly face pressures to return to these patterns. Maintaining authentic living means consciously resisting cultural messages that devalue authenticity and encourage performance. Regularly reconnect with your why. Why does living for yourself matter to you? What difference has it made in your life? What would be the cost of returning to living for others? These questions help you remember what you are working toward and why the ongoing effort is worthwhile. Develop wisdom about when compromise is authentic and when it is self-betrayal. Living for yourself does not mean never compromising. Healthy relationships and functioning in society require some compromise. The key is distinguishing between compromise that honors everyone involved versus compromise that abandons yourself. This discernment develops over time through experience and reflection. Celebrate milestones and growth. When you notice you handled a situation differently than you would have in the past, acknowledge it. When you reach a year of maintaining boundaries, Celebrate it. When you realize you cannot even imagine returning to old people-pleasing patterns, recognize how far you have come. These celebrations mark progress and motivate continuation. Remember that living for yourself is the only sustainable way to live. Living for others eventually leads to breakdown through burnout, resentment, depression, or physical illness. You cannot sustain self-abandonment forever. Your system will rebel. Living for yourself, while challenging, is actually the easier path long-term because it is sustainable. You are working with your authentic nature rather than against it. The long-term practice of living for yourself means that authenticity becomes your default rather than your exception. It means that self-betrayal becomes uncomfortable rather than normal. It means that honoring yourself becomes automatic rather than requiring constant conscious effort. This is the goal, making authentic living so integrated into your identity and daily patterns that you cannot imagine living any other way. Chapter 14. When living for yourself means leaving. Sometimes, living for yourself requires leaving situations, relationships, or identities that cannot accommodate your authentic self. This is often the hardest part of reclaiming your life because leaving creates grief, guilt, and uncertainty even when staying would be worse. Understanding when leaving is necessary and how to do it with integrity is essential. Recognize the difference between relationships that need adjustment and relationships that need ending. Most relationships can adapt to your authenticity with communication, boundary setting, and time. But some relationships are fundamentally based on your self-abandonment. When the relationship only functions if you betray yourself, when the other person cannot or will not adjust to your growth, when abuse or manipulation is present, leaving might be necessary. Signs a relationship might need ending. You must completely hide your authentic self for the relationship to function. The other person uses manipulation, guilt, or coercion to maintain control. Your mental or physical health deteriorates in the relationship. You have communicated your needs clearly, and they are consistently disregarded. The relationship is based on who you used to be, and they refuse to accept who you are becoming. You feel more relief than sadness when you imagine leaving. Before leaving, make sure you have tried authentic communication. Many relationships end prematurely because one person changes but never clearly communicates those changes or gives the other person a real chance to adjust. Have the hard conversation. Share your truth. Express your needs. Set clear boundaries. Give the relationship a genuine chance to evolve. If it cannot, then leaving is more clearly necessary. Accept that leaving does not require the other person's understanding or agreement. You do not need their permission to leave. You do not need them to acknowledge that the relationship is not working. You do not need them to agree that leaving is justified. If you have determined that staying requires self-betrayal and leaving serves your authentic life, that is sufficient reason, regardless of their perspective. Plan practically for leaving. Leaving relationships, especially long-term partnerships or family connections, often has practical implications. Financial considerations, living arrangements, shared responsibilities. Plan for these practicalities rather than leaving impulsively in emotional overwhelm. A well-planned exit is more likely to stick and less likely to create unnecessary chaos. Prepare emotionally for the grief that accompanies leaving. Even when leaving is absolutely the choice, it creates loss. Loss of the relationship as it was. Loss of the future you imagined. loss of identity as someone who never gives up, loss of connection with shared friends or family. Allow yourself to grieve these losses while still moving forward with the necessary departure. Set boundaries during and after leaving. The person you are leaving might try various tactics to get you to return. Promises to change, guilt trips, anger, desperation. Maintain your boundaries. Do not engage in extensive explanations or justifications. Do not allow yourself to be manipulated back into a situation you consciously chose to leave. Protect your decision. Sometimes living for yourself means leaving careers that do not align with your authentic self. You might have invested years in education or building a career that looked impressive but never felt right. Leaving might mean starting over, taking a pay cut, disappointing people who were proud of your success in that field. But continuing in work that betrays your authentic interests and values costs your soul. No paycheck is worth that cost. Signs a career might need leaving. You dread Monday more than you enjoy Friday. The work fundamentally conflicts with your values. You are only continuing because of sunk cost or others' expectations. You fantasize regularly about different work. Your physical or mental health is suffering from the stress. You feel like you are living someone else's life. Before leaving a career, explore options within your current field. Can you shift to a different role, company, or application of your skills that might align better? Can you reduce hours or restructure your work to make it more tolerable? Sometimes small changes within a career make it workable, but if the fundamental work itself is the problem, leaving might be necessary. Have a financial plan before leaving a career. Save enough to give yourself runway. Research what you want to move toward. Develop necessary skills or credentials. Find bridge work if needed. A planned career transition is more likely to succeed than an impulsive quit that leaves you scrambling. Sometimes living for yourself means leaving identities that no longer fit. The good student, the responsible one, the family caretaker, the successful professional, the perfect parent. These identities served a purpose, but you might have outgrown them. Letting go of an identity can feel like losing yourself, but actually, it is finding yourself beneath the role. Accept that leaving creates ripples that affect others. This is unavoidable. Your leaving might inconvenience people, disappoint people, force people to adjust. These ripples are not your responsibility to prevent. Living for yourself sometimes means allowing others to experience the natural consequences of your choices, including their discomfort with those choices. Remember that leaving does not make you a quitter or failure. Leaving situations that require self-betrayal is wisdom, not weakness. Staying in the wrong relationship, career, or identity out of stubbornness or fear is not virtue. Having the courage to leave what does not serve you to pursue what does is one of the most authentic choices you can make. Leaving is not always physical. Sometimes it is emotional. You might stay in a relationship or career while leaving the old patterns and dynamics. You remain present physically, but you stop abandoning yourself within the situation. You set boundaries, honor your authentic needs, and stop performing. This internal leaving can transform situations that previously required self-betrayal. Whether leaving physically or leaving old patterns within a situation, the essential shift is the same. You are choosing yourself. You are prioritizing your authentic life over others' comfort with your inauthenticity. You are accepting short-term discomfort and loss for long-term authenticity and fulfillment. This is not selfish. This is self-preservation. This is living for yourself. Chapter 15. Your liberated life. You have now explored every aspect of stopping living for others and starting living for yourself. You understand the psychological dynamics. You know the practical strategies. You have seen the mindset shifts required. The final piece is integration, actually living as someone who has reclaimed their life and embodies authentic self-authorship. What does a liberated life actually look like? It looks like waking up and not immediately wondering what others think or need. It looks like making decisions from inner guidance rather than external expectations. It looks like relationships based on genuine connection rather than performance. It looks like work that expresses your authentic interests and values. It looks like daily choices that honor your energy, time, and well-being. A liberated life feels lighter. You are not carrying the weight of everyone's expectations, the burden of constant performance, or the exhaustion of perpetual self-abandonment. You have put down loads that were never yours to carry. This lightness is not irresponsibility. It is appropriate responsibility. You are responsible for your life, your choices, your well-being, not for everyone else's. A liberated life includes genuine rest. When you stop performing, you can actually relax. You do not have to be on constantly. You can be yourself without effort. This allows real restoration rather than the fake rest of someone who is never actually off duty from their performance. A liberated life contains real intimacy. When you show up authentically, people can actually know you. Connection deepens because there is a real you to connect with. Relationships become sources of energy rather than drains because they are based on truth rather than pretense. A liberated life allows contribution from your authentic gifts. You are not wasting your unique talents trying to be someone you are not. You are expressing what is genuinely yours to express. This creates satisfaction and meaning that performing could never provide. A liberated life includes mistakes and imperfection without shame. You are human. You fail sometimes. You make choices you later regret. But you do not spiral into self-hatred because your worth is not dependent on perfection. You learn, adjust, and continue forward. A liberated life means disappointing people regularly and being okay with that. You have accepted that you cannot please everyone and that trying to do so would require abandoning yourself. You make peace with the reality that your authentic choices will not always align with others' preferences. A liberated life includes continuing growth and evolution. You do not lock into one version of yourself and defend it forever. You remain curious about who you are becoming, willing to change, open to new dimensions of yourself emerging. Living liberated does not mean you never doubt yourself or struggle with choices. It means you trust yourself to figure things out, even when you do not know the answer immediately. It means you believe in your ability to handle whatever comes, rather than needing certainty before acting. Living liberated does not mean you do not care what anyone thinks. It means others' opinions inform, but do not determine your choices. You consider perspectives, but you make your own decisions. You can appreciate approval without needing it, and handle disapproval without being destroyed by it. Living liberated means you have become someone you genuinely like and respect, not because you are perfect, but because you are authentic, not because you always make the right choice, but because you make your own choices, not because everyone approves of you, but because you approve of yourself. Your liberated life ripples outward. Your authenticity gives others permission to be authentic. Your boundaries teach others that boundaries are acceptable. Your self-honoring choices show others that they too can honor themselves. You become a model of what is possible when someone chooses themselves, and this modeling is a profound contribution to a world full of people abandoning themselves. The invitation now is to step fully into this liberated life. Not someday, when conditions are perfect. Not after you have permission from everyone important to you. Now, today, this moment, you have all the information you need. You understand the dynamics. You know the strategies. You see the mindset shifts required. All that remains is action. Start exactly where you are. You do not need to overhaul your entire life in one day, but you can make one authentic choice today. Set one boundary. Honor one need. Express one truth. Say one no that needs saying. Make one decision based on your values rather than their expectations. This single choice begins the momentum. Each authentic choice builds on the last. Each time you choose yourself, you strengthen those neural pathways and weaken the old people-pleasing patterns. Each time you tolerate the discomfort of disapproval without backing down, you build capacity for greater authenticity. Each time you honor yourself, you reinforce the belief that you are worth honoring. Your life is finite. You have a limited number of days, hours, minutes to live. This is not meant to create anxiety, but to create urgency. Every day you spend living for others is a day you do not get back. Every year you give to performance, and people-pleasing is a year stolen from your authentic life. The cost of waiting is your one precious existence. You do not need to earn the right to live for yourself. You do not need to achieve a certain level of success first. You do not need to wait until others understand. You do not need to become perfect before you deserve to honor yourself. Your worthiness to live your own life is inherent. It came with your birth. It cannot be taken away by others and does not need to be granted by anyone. The world does not need more people performing and people-pleasing. The world needs more people living authentically, expressing their unique gifts, and showing up as their real selves. Your authentic life is not selfish indulgence. It is your contribution. It is what you came here to do. Stop living for others. Start living for yourself. Not tomorrow. Not next year. Not when conditions are perfect. Now. This moment. This choice. This day. Your liberated life is waiting. You are the only one who can claim it. And the time is now. Your journey from living for others to living for yourself has brought you to this moment. Everything you need is within you. All the courage, all the strength, all the wisdom required to reclaim your life and live authentically. You have spent enough time as someone else's creation. It is time to become your own. The person you will be 1 year from now, 5 years from now, at the end of your life, is determined by the choices you make starting today. Choose yourself. Choose authenticity. Choose your own life. This is not the end of your journey. This is the beginning of the life you were always meant to live. The life where you stop living for others and finally, beautifully, completely start living for yourself.